You were never taught to question the location of your mind. Like billions before you, you were born into a worldview that quietly whispered absolutes. It told you that your mind is a byproduct of your brain, that consciousness is a flickering spark in a neuronal network, and that all that is real exists within the skin-bound boundaries of your body. This view, inherited unquestioningly by generations, became the silent architecture of how you perceived reality, how you understood yourself, and how you defined what was possible. But something in you has always known that this cannot be the full picture. You've felt it in the synchronicities too precise to be chance, in the dream that became prophecy, in the way your body reacts, not just to what's happening now, but to fears that have never materialized, to memories you didn't consciously recall, to intuitions you couldn't explain. You've glimpsed the edge of something deeper, something vast, interconnected, intelligent, and yet for so long, you were told to ignore it. The dominant narrative of the modern world has been deeply rooted in materialism. In this model, only the measurable is considered real. Only the tangible can be trusted. The brain, in this paradigm, is a kind of biological computer, processing, reacting, and storing inputs from a supposedly objective, external world. Within this view, you are a solitary observer in an indifferent universe, trapped in flesh, governed by cause and effect, disconnected from the whole. But what if that story is not only incomplete, but profoundly mistaken? What if you are not a mind inside a body, but a vast field of consciousness, momentarily localizing itself in human form? What if your mind was never meant to be confined, but was always part of something greater, something infinite? Modern science, particularly in the realms of quantum physics and advanced neuroscience, has begun to point in directions ancient wisdom has long whispered. We are beginning to understand that the observer and the observed are not separate, that the mind is not merely reacting to the world, but actively participating in shaping it. That intention is not a poetic fantasy, but a force that ripples through the very fabric of space-time. To accept this is not merely to embrace a new theory. It is to walk through a threshold of perception. It is to let go of the illusion of powerlessness and step into the mystery of your true nature. This is not an invitation to believe blindly, but to remember, deeply, cellularly, what your soul has always known but your culture has taught you to forget. That you are not separate from life, not a passive fragment drifting through a random cosmos. You are life itself, aware of itself, woven into the intelligent unfolding of reality. This is where our journey begins, not with answers, but with deeper questions, not with control, but with remembrance, not with striving, but with alignment. What if your reality is not something that happens to you, but something that flows from you? What if every thought, every feeling, every belief is not just a private moment inside your mind, but a signal, a frequency, transmitted into a responsive field that surrounds you, receives you, and shapes itself accordingly? And what if, in learning how to work with that field, you could begin not only to experience change, but to embody transformation? Let's begin. The myth of the isolated mind. For centuries, the prevailing view of human consciousness has been one of confinement. The mind, we were told, is a function of the brain, no more, no less. Neurons firing, chemicals balancing, synapses lighting up like circuitry on a motherboard. And while this model brought breakthroughs in medicine, it quietly erected a prison of perception. If your mind is nothing more than a byproduct of brain activity, then your experience of life is limited to biology. You are trapped inside your head, reacting to a world you did not create, disconnected from everything and everyone around you. But this belief, long accepted as truth, is now unraveling under the weight of its own limitations. This is not simply a philosophical shift. It is a revolution in understanding backed by empirical discovery. Neuroscientists now acknowledge that the brain is not a camera recording an objective world, but a prediction machine generating a model of reality based on past experience and internal biases. Quantum physicists have gone even further, showing us that the universe itself does not exist in a fixed state until it is observed, and that the act of observation changes the outcome. And perhaps most compelling of all are the findings in quantum entanglement, where particles separated by vast distances continue to influence one another instantaneously, suggesting that separation is, at best, an illusion. These discoveries are not minor anomalies. They are cracks in the foundation of materialism. They point to a reality that is fundamentally relational, participatory, and deeply interconnected. And they invite us to revisit the most personal and yet most misunderstood aspect of our being, our own mind. Your mind is not a closed system. It is not a machine, nor is it merely the output of gray matter inside your skull. It is not bound by the physical structure of your body. Rather, it is an energetic field, a luminous web of awareness that extends far beyond the confines of skin and bone. Your thoughts are not simply chemical reactions. They are vibrations, frequencies, emissions that interact with the world around you in ways that defy conventional logic. To say your mind is non-local is not metaphor. It is to acknowledge that consciousness is not confined to space or time in the way matter is. Think of a radio. The receiver may be in one place, but the signal it picks up is everywhere. Similarly, your brain may serve as a localized receiver, a kind of biological interface, but the signal, your consciousness, originates from and operates within a larger, unified field. Indigenous traditions, mystics, and ancient spiritual lineages have long understood this. They never separated the mind from the heart or the self from the cosmos. They spoke of intuition, of the subtle senses, of the dream world and energetic realms, not as hallucinations, but as extensions of reality inaccessible to the physical eye. And now, after centuries of dismissing such perspectives, modern science is beginning to catch up. But here lies the deeper truth. Your mind, as part of this non-local field, is inherently relational. It does not merely receive information, it co-creates meaning. You are not a spectator in this universe. You are a participant. Every thought, every emotional pulse, every expectation you carry is a ripple in the quantum field, and those ripples influence what reality reveals to you next. This isn't mysticism, it's physics, it's biology, and it's the next frontier of human evolution. The consequences of this are profound. If your mind is not limited to your body, then your influence is not limited by proximity. You can affect outcomes, events, even people across distance and time, not through magic, but through resonance. And if that is true, then every moment becomes an opportunity to direct your focus, your attention, your energy toward the reality you wish to inhabit. But to step into that power, you must first dissolve the illusion that your consciousness is a prisoner of flesh. You must release the inherited myth that your mind is small, reactive, and contained. Because the truth is far more liberating. You were never confined. You were always connected. And once you begin to live from that knowing, not just intellectually, but vibrationally, you start to awaken a dimension of being that renders limitation irrelevant. The door has never been locked, you simply forgot it was open. The quantum field and the mind beyond skin. To grasp the nature of your consciousness, you must first step outside the narrow framework of individualism that the modern world has conditioned you to believe in. You are not an isolated observer, peering out from behind your eyes at a world made of lifeless matter. You are a living node in a vast, intelligent system of energy, a vibrating strand in a tapestry so intricate that the distinction between self and universe begins to blur as you look more closely. This system, this field, is not theoretical. It is the very medium in which you exist, and it is called the quantum field. The quantum field is not empty space. It is not a vacuum. It is a dynamic, living sea of energy and potential, invisible to the eye but measurable in its effects. Every particle, every atom, every object you perceive is not truly solid, but a localized excitation of this field, a ripple, a vibration, a momentary wave rising from stillness. You are not outside of this field observing it. You are made of it. The boundary between your body and the rest of existence is not fixed. It is fluid, porous, energetic. Every breath, every thought, every emotion you experience is not confined within you, but radiates out as a frequency into this field, echoing far beyond your physical form. This field is not merely responsive. It is intelligent in its architecture. It encodes the blueprint for all possible expressions of reality, all potential versions of you, all possible timelines that could ever unfold. The ancient mystics referred to it as the Akasha, the ether, the invisible matrix that connects all things. Today, quantum physics offers a language that parallels those visions. Within the quantum field, particles do not exist as fixed entities until they are observed. They exist as probabilities, as clouds of potential. And what collapses those probabilities into form? Consciousness, awareness, intention. This means that your mind is not a passive passenger within the body, reacting to a pre-existing world. It is a creative force that participates in the actual formation of what you perceive as reality, not by brute force, but through resonance. Your thoughts, when focused and emotionally charged, emit a frequency. That frequency interacts with the field and draws to you the circumstances that match it, just as a tuning fork vibrating at a certain pitch will cause another fork of the same frequency to begin vibrating, even across space. But this influence is not limited to what you think. It extends to the totality of your energetic state. Your emotions, your habitual focus, your unconscious assumptions, all of these form your vibrational signature, and it is that signature that the field responds to. You are always broadcasting, whether you realize it or not. You are always interacting with the field, and the quality of that interaction shapes what collapses into your lived experience. This is why change does not begin outside you. It begins within. It begins with a shift in frequency, a change in coherence, a softening of resistance, a heightening of presence. The field does not obey the timeline of your calendar. It responds to the clarity and consistency of your vibration. When your internal state aligns with a possibility in the field, that possibility becomes probable. And when that alignment becomes stable, when you hold it in mind and body, thought and emotion, belief and behavior, that probability collapses into reality. Your body is part of this feedback loop. It is not just a vessel, but a living antenna, constantly sending and receiving signals. The heart emits a magnetic field, measurable several feet beyond the skin. The brain's electrical activity radiates outward as well. But beyond these known emissions is something subtler still. The field of your intention, your conscious focus, your energetic posture. When you feel connected, grateful, aligned, your field expands. When you feel anxious, ashamed, disconnected, your field contracts. These are not just metaphors. They are measurable shifts in energy that affect your relationship to the field around you. To live as though your mind ends at your skull is to operate with a fraction of your potential. It is to mistake the receiver for the source. But when you begin to live from the awareness that your consciousness is non-local, that your presence ripples outward and interacts with all things, something extraordinary begins to happen. You stop trying to control reality from the outside, and you start influencing it from the inside. You realize that the space around you is not empty, but alive, and that you are speaking to it constantly, with every thought, every feeling, every breath. And the field is listening. Reality as a mirror, not a wall. What if the world you perceive is not the world as it is, but the world as you are? This single question, simple on the surface, shatters the foundations of the materialist worldview. For most of your life, you have been taught to believe that reality is something objective, external, and fixed, a wall you run into, not a mirror that reflects you. But once you understand the non-local nature of consciousness and its inseparable relationship with the quantum field, you begin to see reality not as a pre-written script, but as a feedback loop. Not a movie playing independently of you, but a simulation co-authored by your own mind. Modern neuroscience, when divorced from rigid reductionism, tells a striking story. The brain is not a passive recorder of sensory input. It does not capture the world like a video camera. Instead, it predicts. Based on a lifetime of experiences, memories, emotions, and beliefs, your brain constructs a working model of the world, a simulation, and constantly updates it with just enough data from the senses to maintain the illusion of coherence. What you perceive, then, is not the world as it is, but the world as your brain expects it to be. This means that your experience of reality is filtered, not just through your senses, but through your subconscious programming. If you have been conditioned to expect disappointment, your brain will filter your environment to confirm that expectation. If you hold deep-seated beliefs about unworthiness, you will unconsciously reject or distort experiences that challenge that belief, even if they are positive. And yet to you, reality will seem neutral. It will feel as though the world simply is this way, as though circumstances just happen to be aligned with your doubts, your fears, your familiar limitations. But they are not accidents. They are reflections. You are seeing a mirror, not a wall. And the mirror is multidimensional. It reflects not just your conscious thoughts, but the frequency of your emotional body, the depth of your assumptions, the patterns imprinted in your nervous system. Most people live within this echo chamber without ever realizing it. They think they are reacting to life, but they are reacting to the projection of their own subconscious programs, reflected back to them by the field. This is the loop. You think the world is disappointing, and so you feel hopeless. That hopelessness alters your energy, which causes you to notice only what confirms your story. Your attention becomes biased. Your thoughts become narrowed. Your nervous system prepares for loss, not opportunity. And the field, being precise and non-judgmental, reflects back that frequency in the form of delayed dreams, strained relationships, or missed opportunities. And because it matches your internal state, you assume it is evidence of truth. And so the loop continues. But if the mirror reflects, it can also reveal. It can show you not just the patterns that shape your experience, but the power you have to change them. When you recognize that reality is not objective, but interactive, that it is listening to you, responding to you, shaped by you, you move from being a victim of your circumstances to being the creator of them. You stop trying to control the external world and begin to master the internal signals you are broadcasting. This is not about blame. You are not at fault for what your mind was taught to expect, but you are responsible for whether you continue to create from unconscious repetition or step into conscious participation. The quantum field does not judge your story. It simply responds to your signal. And your signal is not what you say you want. It is who you are being, emotionally, energetically, consistently. Reality is not fixed. It is fluid. And like any mirror, it changes the moment you do. When you shift your frequency, you change what the field reflects. When you embody a new emotional baseline of trust, of empowerment, of self-worth, the world begins to bend around that posture. Not immediately, not always dramatically, but undeniably. You are not here to passively observe a universe that does not care about you. You are here to awaken within it, to see it as a living mirror, and to learn how to shape its reflection by shaping yourself. This is the beginning of conscious creation, not as a fantasy, but as a discipline. And the mirror is always ready. The hidden architect, Subconscious programming. Beneath the surface of every thought you think, every choice you make, and every emotion you feel, there lies a deeper current, a silent architect shaping your reality without your conscious permission. This architect is your subconscious mind. Not mysterious in essence, but profoundly underestimated in power. It is the invisible force that constructs the framework of your daily life, guiding your perceptions, your reactions, your expectations, and, by extension, your outcomes. You may believe you are making conscious decisions, but neuroscience reveals a sobering truth. The conscious mind governs a mere 5% of your cognitive activity. The remaining 95%, the true operating system of your life, is running in the background, unseen, unquestioned, yet undeniably influential. Your subconscious does not speak in language. It speaks in repetition. It is formed through emotional imprinting, especially in early childhood, and solidified through consistent exposure to patterns. Patterns of thought, patterns of feeling, patterns of belief. It is shaped not only by what you were told, but by how you were treated, what you felt safe to express, what you were praised or punished for. These experiences become scripts, and those scripts become the software through which your reality is filtered. Here's the pivotal realization. The subconscious mind is not evil, nor is it your enemy. It is not working against you out of malice. Its job is to keep you safe, and it does that by keeping you familiar. Familiar pain, familiar limitation, familiar struggle. If that's what your nervous system has learned to survive, your subconscious will keep recreating those conditions, not because they serve your expansion, but because they match your programmed baseline. And as long as that programming remains unchanged, no amount of conscious desire will shift your external circumstances in a lasting way. This is why so many people feel stuck. They set goals, recite affirmations, visualize better outcomes, and yet their lives remain largely the same. Because while their conscious mind may want transformation, their subconscious mind is still running on old data, still expecting rejection, still anticipating failure, still anchored in scarcity, unworthiness, abandonment, or fear. The quantum field, neutral and precise, is not responding to their wishful thoughts. It is responding to their vibrational signal, and that signal is generated not by what they say they want, but by what they deeply believe is safe, possible, and true. To change your life, then, is not to override your subconscious by force, but to reprogram it through repetition, through elevated emotional states, and through the embodiment of new identity. But first, you must become aware of what is running you. You must shine the light of presence on the patterns you've inherited from your past. Patterns that may not have begun with you, but now live through you. And this requires courage, because awareness is not always comfortable. It demands that you take radical responsibility for the energies you have been unconsciously emitting into the field. Yet this is the beginning of liberation. When you understand that your subconscious mind has been shaping your reality all along, you no longer need to feel powerless. You no longer need to see life as a series of external obstacles. You can begin to see every repeated experience, every persistent emotion, every frustrating cycle as a message, not a punishment. A message from the hidden architect within you, revealing the programming that is ready to be rewritten. And here's what's even more profound. The subconscious mind learns through emotion, not logic. This means that the most direct path to transformation is not more information, but new experience. Experiences that carry a higher emotional frequency. Gratitude, joy, safety, empowerment. When felt consistently, these states begin to overwrite the old scripts. They become the new familiar. And as the subconscious shifts, your baseline frequency changes, and the field, in perfect resonance, begins to reflect new outcomes. This is not wishful thinking. It is biological. It is electromagnetic. It is spiritual. And it is available to you. The hidden architect of your reality is not some distant force. It is you. the deeper you. And the moment you become conscious of it, you reclaim the blueprint. You begin not just to respond to the world, but to rewire your relationship to it from within. That is where true transformation begins, not in the changing of circumstances, but in the elevation of identity. The field does not deliver what you desire. It mirrors who you are, and you, in your awareness, in your presence, in your willingness to choose again, are the author now. If you've ever wondered why certain patterns in your life seem to repeat, why the same kind of relationship keeps showing up, why financial struggle feels cyclical, why a particular fear keeps finding new forms to inhabit, the answer is rarely found in the external world. It is found within a feedback loop so persistent, so invisible, that it becomes mistaken for fate. But this loop is not punishment. It is information. It is the field reflecting the internal blueprint you've unconsciously broadcasted into it. The mechanism of this loop is deceptively simple. You experience something painful, a betrayal, a rejection, a moment of failure. That experience leaves an imprint, not just as memory, but as energetic residue. Your subconscious mind records it, stores it, and uses it as a reference point for future safety. It begins to anticipate similar outcomes and subtly shifts your thoughts, behaviors, and emotional states to align with what it expects. This changes your frequency. And the field, loyal and precise, mirrors that expectation. You find yourself in another version of the same story, not because you are cursed, but because the script has not been rewritten. This is not abstract theory. It is a pattern deeply woven into the biology of your nervous system. The brain, designed to conserve energy and avoid risk, prefers the familiar, even if the familiar is painful. It will choose a predictable suffering over an uncertain joy. It will steer you toward what it knows how to survive, not necessarily what will allow you to thrive. And so, the loop continues. A repeated thought leads to a familiar emotion. That emotion reactivates the belief. The belief influences perception. Perception filters reality, and reality confirms the belief. Round and round it goes, until the pattern becomes your identity. You say, "This is just who I am." Or worse, "This is just how life is." But neither statement is true. What you are experiencing is not the truth of life. It is the echo of unexamined programming. This loop is powerful because it operates beneath awareness. You're not consciously choosing to recreate the same reality. You're simply living in accordance with the vibration you have not yet chosen to update. Your attention is drawn to what resonates with your current state. Your choices reflect what feels emotionally congruent with your internal set point. Even when something new presents itself, an opportunity, a relationship, a possibility, you may sabotage it unconsciously because it doesn't match the internal blueprint. And what doesn't match is often rejected, even if it's exactly what you say you want. But this is also where the opportunity lies, because the loop is not self-sustaining. It is self-fed. And anything self-fed can be interrupted by awareness. The moment you become conscious of a recurring pattern, you introduce something new into the system: choice. And choice disrupts the autopilot. Awareness, when sustained, is the first step in dissolving the loop, not by fighting it, but by observing it, feeling it, and ultimately choosing to stop identifying with it. To break the loop is not to erase the past. It is to stop rehearsing it. It is to stop using past pain as present identity. It is to recognize that what happened then does not have the power to define what becomes real now, unless you let it. The quantum field, after all, does not operate based on your history. It operates based on your current frequency. This is why transformation is always available in the now, because now is where the signal is being broadcast. And if you change the signal, you change the mirror. When you stop repeating the emotion that sustained the old story, the story no longer sustains itself. You collapse new possibilities. You change timelines. You bend what once felt inevitable. Most people don't live stuck in cycles because they are weak. They live in loops because no one ever taught them how to interrupt the broadcast. But now you know. And knowing means you can choose. And choosing is how the loop begins to dissolve. At the heart of your being lies a truth so simple, so powerful, that once remembered, it reorders your relationship to everything you know. You are not reacting to the world. You are signaling to it. Every moment, whether you are aware of it or not, you are transmitting a frequency. Through your thoughts, your emotions, your expectations, your self-concept, and that signal is not disappearing into empty space. It is being received, mirrored, responded to by the intelligent, non-linear, multi-dimensional fabric of the quantum field. You are not just a product of your environment. You are its co-creator. This may contradict everything you've been taught. You've been conditioned to believe that life is happening to you, that outcomes arrive from the outside, that success, love, healing, or peace depend on external circumstances aligning in your favor. But once you begin to see the mind not as a private phenomenon inside the skull but as a field, a radiant wave function interwoven with the greater whole, everything shifts. You begin to realize that what you think, feel, and believe is not passive data. It is causative force. Your thoughts are not inert. They are instructions. Each thought emits an electromagnetic signal. That signal, when amplified by emotion, becomes a coherent broadcast, a vibrational code that interacts with the field around you. The more aligned your thoughts and emotions are, the stronger and clearer that broadcast becomes. This is why fragmented intentions yield fragmented results. You cannot say one thing, feel another, and expect coherence from the field. It is not confused. It is precise. It responds to the totality of your energetic state, not your words, but your vibration. Your mind, then, is not a mere observer. It is a transmitter, constantly projecting your inner world outward, collapsing certain probabilities into your external experience. And here's the key. The signal you emit is not based on what you consciously desire. It is based on what you consistently embody. You may affirm abundance daily, but if your emotional signature is still rooted in lack, the field will respond to lack. You may wish for love, but if your nervous system is still entrained to fear, to avoidance, to protection, your signal will reflect that, and love will remain elusive. The mind becomes creative when it becomes coherent. When thought, emotion, and belief align, the signal becomes laser-like, focused, potent. This is when the field begins to respond in ways that feel uncanny, synchronous, even miraculous. But it is not a miracle in the mystical sense. It is physics made personal. There is a reason the ancient mystics and modern scientists alike speak of alignment. Alignment is not a metaphor. It is a vibrational reality. The more your inner world stabilizes in a particular frequency, gratitude, peace, empowerment, the more the field organizes itself to reflect that pattern. This is not about control. It is about correspondence. The field does not obey demands. It responds to resonance. Imagine yourself not as a separate self moving through a world of fixed objects, but as a frequency-based organism in continuous dialogue with a living field. Your life is not happening in a vacuum. It is responding to you in real time. When you shift your internal state, the field shifts with you. Not always instantly, but inevitably. The signal always precedes the shift. Always. This is what it means to be a conscious creator. Not someone who manipulates external events with force or obsession, but someone who aligns internally with such clarity and coherence that the external world naturally begins to conform. You stop chasing outcomes and start radiating the frequency that attracts them. You stop begging for evidence and become the evidence. You are not here to wait for life to grant you permission to feel whole. You are here to remember that you are the signal, and the signal is the seed. Every thought, every feeling, every belief you embody is a seed in the quantum field. And the field, in its unfailing intelligence, will return to you what you sow, not as reward or punishment, but as echo. The question is not whether you are creating. You always are. The question is, are you creating consciously or by default? And the answer is found not in your wishes, but in your signal. There are moments in life that defy logic, when something you needed shows up without warning, when a stranger says the exact words you needed to hear, when time seems to bend and an outcome you thought impossible arrives effortlessly. We call these miracles, synchronicities, divine timing. But beneath the poetry of such language lies a deeper, more precise reality. These moments are not random. They are not exceptions. They are quantum events, the tangible evidence that your consciousness has interacted with the quantum field in a coherent, creative way. A quantum event is not merely something that happens. It is something you've aligned with. It is the collapse of potential into form, the materialization of a reality that was always available, but which required a specific frequency, your frequency, to be drawn into experience. In the quantum model, everything that can happen already exists as a probability. The version of your life where you are healed, loved, abundant, free. It is already encoded in the field. The only question is, have you become the version of yourself who resonates with that outcome? This is not about wishing. Wishing keeps your desire at a distance. This is about embodying. A quantum event occurs when your internal coherence reaches a threshold so clear, so aligned, that it interacts with a matching potential in the field and collapses it into your timeline. You don't pull the experience toward you. You meet it where it already exists. You may have already experienced quantum events in your life without realizing it. Think of those uncanny moments when you thought about someone and they suddenly called. When you decided deep down to walk away from what no longer served you, and the next day, an opportunity appeared. These are not coincidences. They are reflections. The field is not responding to your passing thoughts. It is responding to your sustained frequency. But most people experience quantum events accidentally. They happen when emotional clarity or deep surrender temporarily aligns their signal, often in moments of despair or release. They touch alignment without knowing it, and because they don't understand the mechanics, they label the experience as chance, not realizing they can return to that space intentionally. To consciously create quantum events, you must understand what the field requires, not effort, but alignment. The field is not manipulated by force. It is informed by resonance. You do not push possibility into form. You become the pattern that makes it inevitable. This requires presence. Not partial presence, but embodied presence. A coherence of thought, emotion, and intention that sends a clear message into the quantum fabric of reality. When that message is steady, when it is sustained long enough to recondition the nervous system, the field responds. The event collapses. Reality moves. But this is not a one-time phenomenon. You are interacting with the field every moment of your life. Every decision you make, every feeling you entertain, every belief you nurture is part of an ongoing dialogue. Quantum events are not interruptions to this dialogue. They are peaks within it, moments when the signal becomes so clear that reality must rearrange to match. This is why the greatest shifts often feel effortless. Not because no energy was involved, but because the energy was clean, coherent, undiluted by contradiction. When your mind says yes, but your body still holds no, when your desire is wrapped in doubt or fear, the signal is scrambled. But when the whole system aligns, when your thoughts, emotions, and nervous system all move in unison toward a single possibility, the universe, as Rumi wrote, begins to move in your favor. These are the moments when energy becomes form, when the invisible becomes visible, when possibility becomes experience. They are not gifts given to the lucky. They are reflections of frequency. And that frequency begins with you. You do not need to chase quantum events. You need to cultivate the inner coherence that makes them inevitable. Your job is not to force the world to change. Your job is to become the version of you for whom that change is already reality. The event does not come to the old self. It arrives when you have become the version of yourself who is naturally aligned with it. This is the architecture of transformation. Not magic, but mastery. And it is available to you now. The universe rarely announces a transformation with thunder and lightning. More often, it begins with a whisper. A subtle shift in the atmosphere of your life. A quiet rearranging of events that, at first, feels almost accidental. You begin to notice that the usual resistance has softened. The same daily patterns no longer feel heavy. Your reactions change before your circumstances do. And then, just as your internal state reaches a new rhythm, the outer world responds. This is how reality bends. Not through spectacle, but through alignment. Recognizing a quantum shift is less about looking for external signs and more about feeling the internal coherence that precedes them. It begins with a felt sense, an intuitive knowing that something has changed, even if you can't yet name it. You may feel more present, less anxious, more open without understanding why. You may notice that you are no longer magnetized to old triggers or drawn into habitual suffering. This inner shift is the signal that the field has begun to respond. The mirror is adjusting. External markers will follow. A person reaches out whom you haven't thought of in years, and their message is exactly what you needed. A synchronicity occurs that seems so precise, it feels orchestrated. An opportunity appears with a sense of perfect timing, not because the universe suddenly decided to help you, but because you've shifted into the version of yourself that is available to receive it. The frequency has changed. The feedback is real, but if you are not attuned to subtlety, you may overlook these moments. You may dismiss them as coincidence or feel undeserving of their arrival. This is the residue of old programming, the part of you that still believes transformation must be earned through struggle or proven by pain. Yet the field is not testing you. It is reflecting you, and the reflection becomes clearer the moment you believe you are worthy of ease. Learning to recognize quantum shifts requires a new kind of sensitivity, a listening beyond the five senses, a willingness to trust felt perception even when logic is unsure. It requires you to notice how your reality feels rather than how it looks. Often, the shift precedes the evidence. The feeling comes before the proof, and those who demand proof before belief miss the arrival of new timelines altogether. Pay attention then, not only to what appears in your life, but to how you show up to it. Are you moving with greater ease, or still gripping tightly to control? Are you more curious than defensive? Are you more open to the unknown than afraid of it? These are the signs that your frequency is evolving, because when reality begins to bend, it doesn't always roar. It often hums, quietly, subtly. And if you're listening closely, you'll hear it, the whisper of alignment moving through the details of your day, the soft echo of a field reorganizing itself around your becoming. And in that moment you will realize it was never the world that needed to change. It was you, and you have. To move from theory into transformation, you must learn to bridge the knowing with the being. It is one thing to understand that you are emitting a frequency into the quantum field. It is another thing entirely to shape that frequency deliberately, consistently, until reality cannot help but respond. This is the practice of alignment. It is not a technique. It is not about controlling life or performing rituals in the hope of reward. It is a way of inhabiting consciousness so intentionally, so coherently, that quantum events become the natural consequence of your inner posture. The field is not activated by effort. It is shaped by resonance, and resonance begins with clarity. This is why the first step in conscious creation is not force, but focus. You must become exquisitely clear on what you desire, not in vague generalities, but in vivid, emotionally charged specificity. What does it feel like to live in alignment with your highest self? What experience do you want to collapse into form, not just as a fantasy, but as a living embodiment? This clarity is not a demand. It is a declaration, a signal. The field responds not to desperation, but to identity. And so your intention must come not from the question, "How do I get this?" but from the knowing, "This is who I now am." The more certainty and emotional coherence you bring to this declaration, the more potent the signal becomes. This is the first threshold. The second step is embodiment. Once the intention is clear, you must become the frequency of its fulfillment. Not tomorrow, not after the world changes, now. The quantum field does not respond to the future version of you. It responds to the current version of you. And that means you must feel the emotions, think the thoughts, and breathe the energy of the reality you wish to experience as if it were already yours. This is not pretending. It is tuning. When you begin to feel abundant, before any evidence shows up, when you begin to walk as if love is already flowing through your life, when you carry the energy of freedom while circumstances still appear confined, you are entering the creative dimension. Your nervous system may resist this at first. Old emotions will surface. Doubt will speak. The body, conditioned by past experiences, will want proof before it feels safe. But your task is not to argue with these echoes. Your task is to remain, to breathe through the discomfort, to continue holding the frequency until the unfamiliar becomes familiar, until the new vibration becomes the dominant signal. Then comes the third step, expansion. With your state embodied, you extend your energy into the field, not to grasp or demand, but to merge with possibility. Visualize your energy radiating beyond your body, reaching into the matrix of potential that surrounds you. Feel yourself not as a seeker waiting for life to deliver, but as a participant already communing with the reality you desire. You are not attracting the event to you. You are synchronizing with its frequency. You are collapsing distance by collapsing separation. There is no need to force the image. The quantum field does not speak in pictures. It speaks in vibration. Let your imagination be a vessel for feeling. Let the vision be alive with emotion, with detail, with depth. See it, feel it, become it. Finally, the fourth and most paradoxical step, release. Once you have aligned, embodied, and broadcasted, you must let go, not because you no longer care, but because attachment creates friction. The field responds to coherence, not to control. When you try to force the outcome, you signal distrust. When you over-monitor, over-analyze, or question the timing, you collapse the signal into your old frequency. But when you release with trust, with the calm, anchored knowing that what is aligned will find its way, you create the space for the event to manifest with grace. This is the art of sustained alignment. It is not a one-time ritual. It is a way of being, a way of thinking, feeling, and relating to the field as though it is already responding, because it is. Quantum events are not created by intensity. They are created by consistency, by practicing alignment day after day, not from urgency, but from devotion. When the internal world stabilizes, the external world reflects that stability. When you become the embodiment of what you once thought you had to chase, the field reconfigures around your being. This is not magic. It is coherence, and it is the essence of quantum creation. You are never waiting for the field. The field is waiting for your signal, and your signal becomes clear when you do. Knowing the principles of quantum creation is not the same as living them. You can understand every concept, read the books, listen to the teachings, nod in agreement at every profound idea, and still find yourself repeating the same patterns, longing for the same outcomes, wondering why nothing seems to truly shift. That is because knowledge, without embodiment, does not create change. Information is not transformation. Only lived experience can rewire the field. Integration is the alchemy that turns insight into identity. It is not a final step, but a lifelong process, a sacred unfolding in which theory dissolves into practice, and practice dissolves into being. You do not need more information to create a different life. You need to become a different signal. And becoming is not an intellectual act. It is a vibrational one, a shift in posture, in presence, in how you relate to your moment-to-moment reality. This is where many seekers become stuck. They wait for a certain level of confidence before they act. They wait for external proof before they embody a new state. They wait for the perfect alignment of circumstances to give themselves permission to believe. But quantum creation does not work this way. The field is not waiting for your mastery. It is waiting for your coherence. You do not need to feel completely certain. You only need to feel honest, present, willing. The journey from knowing to embodying begins when you stop asking, "When will it happen?" and start living as though it already is. Not in denial, not in delusion, but in energetic alignment. You begin to carry the vibration of what you wish to experience, not as a performance, but as a devotion. You speak from love, not to get love, but because love is who you are now. You move with confidence, not to manipulate outcome, but because you have remembered your intrinsic worth. You walk in alignment with abundance, not to attract wealth, but because scarcity is no longer your home frequency. And when you forget, and you will, you return, you breathe, you recenter, you forgive yourself for falling into the old loops, and you choose the signal again. This is not about perfection. It is about pattern. The field responds to the dominant frequency, not the occasional spike of joy, not the fleeting burst of clarity, but the grounded rhythm of who you repeatedly become. Integration also means surrendering the need to measure change by immediate results. The seed does not reveal its transformation in the first week, nor does the tree resent the silence of winter. Your work is not to force the outcome. Your work is to remain attuned, to keep choosing alignment long after your mind demands evidence, because the most profound shifts often happen in the unseen until one day they don't. And the reality that once felt far away is suddenly here, natural, effortless, undeniable. The truth is, you are always becoming. Every thought, every choice, every emotional state is contributing to the frequency you live in and the life that mirrors it. The only question is whether you are becoming by default or by design. Are you letting the old program steer the signal? Or are you standing in the authority of your awareness, shaping your field with conscious intention? The transition from knowing to embodying is the threshold of mastery. Not mastery over life, but mastery within it. The power to meet each moment with coherence, to let every challenge refine your alignment, to turn every experience, pleasant or painful, into a deeper remembering of who you really are. And who you are is not a question. It is a signal, and that signal, once embodied, becomes undeniable. At the end of this journey, something becomes unmistakably clear, not through theory or persuasion, but through a quiet, cellular remembrance. You are not separate from the field you seek to influence. You are not an isolated mind projecting desires into an indifferent universe. You are the field. You are the signal. You are the collapsing wave of potential into form. The division between creator and creation, between thought and outcome, between self and source, has always been an illusion born of limited perception. Now, that veil begins to lift. When you fully accept that your mind is not local, not bound by your brain, not confined to your body, everything you once believed about what is possible begins to dissolve. You begin to recognize that your thoughts are not whispers into empty space. They are codes etched into the fabric of existence. Your emotions are not private storms. They are energetic beacons shaping the architecture of your reality. Every expectation, Every belief, every habitual focus is a ripple in the quantum field, reorganizing matter in response to your vibration. This is the sacred truth. You are not in the universe is in you. And with that truth comes a radical shift in responsibility. Not the kind born of guilt or pressure, but the kind that awakens your sovereign power. No longer do you wait for signs. You become the sign. No longer do you seek proof that reality is changing. You embody the frequency that makes change inevitable. You stop chasing the life you want and begin living as though you are already the person who receives it. This is not about pretending. This is about remembering. You are not manifesting a new reality. You are collapsing into the version of yourself who is already aligned with it. And every moment you sustain that alignment, you reinforce the timeline of your highest expression. You strengthen the bridge between the invisible and the visible, between potential and presence, between the imagined and the embodied. And yes, you will forget. The world will tempt you to believe in separation again. Old stories will whisper through your nervous system. But now you know the truth. And that knowing is not fragile. It is alive in your breath, your stillness, your awareness. Each time you remember who you are, the field remembers too. You may still face challenges, but you will no longer see them as evidence of limitation. You will see them as invitations, gateways to greater coherence. You will stop interpreting delay as denial and begin trusting the timing of alignment. Because the field is never late. It is never withholding. It is always matching your vibration with astonishing precision. The miracle is not that the world responds. The miracle is that you finally see it. You finally believe it. And most of all, you live as if it were true, because it is. So let this be your final remembering. You are not here to wait for your reality to change. You are here to become the change in frequency that transforms everything. You are the creator and the creation, the signal and the receiver, the question and the answer. There is nothing outside of you that you are not already connected to. The love you seek, the abundance you long for, the healing you yearn to receive. It all exists within the field, waiting for you to remember your access. Your power was never lost. It was simply unused. And now, it is yours to reclaim. So choose your signal. Embody it fully. Live it relentlessly. And watch as reality rearranges itself. Not because you forced it, but because you finally became it.